what's up everyone? Today I decided to do a book review. I kept going back and forth whether I wanted to do this book review or not, and then what motivated me to do this book review in the first place, because I feel like there's a lot to unpack with this particular book, and I see that a lot of people are DNFing it, which is that's not a bad thing. DNFing is not a bad thing. I'm not here to come for anybody. It's not that type of vibe here. But I will say I think that this book is not getting its shine that I want it to. I feel like for this particular book, with people that have DNF'd it, they necessarily, I'm not saying they didn't give it a chance, but I felt like if they kept reading, it would get more intriguing for the reader. I know that when it comes to certain books, you want to at least be maybe 20% in, or at least 25% in, for the book to go somewhere and to have a point. Where for this book, it was like a slow pace, but not in a boring type of way, because this is a world that we are now consuming. This is a whole new world that we are consuming. This is a debut author as well. So I try to keep all those aspects in mind. And also, reading is subjective. So everyone has their own different points of views. Everybody has their own thoughts, which everyone is entitled to their opinion, you know? But for me, I felt like I love this book so much. There were some things where I'm like, okay, I do see there may be like a little bit of a pacing issue, but is that intentional? Is that what the author was going for? We will never know. But I'm really happy that I read this book. I didn't deter from or be discouraged from what others had to say about this particular book. So I'm really excited to share with you this book review. So today I'm going to be talking about Immortal Dark. This is by Tigest Girma. This is her debut, and literally when I read the synopsis about black vampires and whatnot, I'm like, I am here for it. I am 100% fully committed to this book. And so for this particular book, there are content warnings as well, which I do love that publishers now put that at the beginning of the book. So it says, content warning: Immortal Dark explores the savage world of vampires and the humans who try to survive it. It features some heavy elements such as parental abuse, blood drinking, death, gore, murder, sexual content, strong language, suicide ideation, and violence. Readers, please take note before you grab your invitation. The gates of Ulix University are now open. So, with this book, we are featuring the main character, Kidan, who pretty much is the last person in her family that she knows of that is living, that she knows of, because her sister goes up missing and was taken by vampires. And so with that, with Kidan, she's on this rampage. We learn so much about her. She's very impulsive, which I know a lot of people were not really, you know, people weren't really feeling that for Kidan, but it all made sense. And also, this is marketed as YA. I will say that I feel like after finishing this book, it's definitely, I feel, should be adult. I will say, since I've been on BookTube for the past few years now, I feel like when it comes to authors of color or queer authors, they tend to market their books and have it as a YA, where I really feel strongly that this is an adult book. Based off of the actions that Kidan makes, I feel like she may be a teen, but there are teenagers out there who grow up faster and who makes adult decisions, and everything that's happening in this book is definitely adult worthy. It's definitely not teen. It's not YA. It's definitely not young adult. So for this one, we're following Kidan, and she goes to this Ulix University because her family has this house that she has inherited. She is the heiress of this house. Now, when she gets there, she knows that there is a vampire that's also living in this house called Swainseals Sagad. She just calls him Yos. That's like her nickname that she gives him. And she completely hates him to the core. And she has gone through a lot of loss, and she has also has killed as well, due to impulsive decisions and whatnot. But it makes sense, like, for everything that she's gone through, it adds up. And I will say, like, the stuff that she goes through, and she breaks it down throughout the entire book. So that's why I'm saying, like, if you don't finish the book, you're not going to get to really know Kadan, because Kadan doesn't just open up. She's not like an open book. It like takes time for us to get to know her character and get to know for what she is, like who she is, what she's thinking, how she, like, what is her main goal. And so she really feels truly alone. Like, her parents are dead, her foster mother is dead, her sister was taken. She's trying to figure out who had taken her, and she thinks the vampire that also stays in her family's house took her or either killed her. And she keeps asking him, like, where is my sister, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So they are at each other's throats, and as she's at this university, she also has to stay there within a year or whatever as well. So there are conditions that she has to abide by. And also with the vampire Synos, he's a vampire, that he also has to abide by certain rules as well, as regarding to Kidan, and in the house and living there and whatnot. So there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot to unpack. And I've noticed that with some reviews, they're saying like, this book doesn't make sense. And I'm like, there are moments, I'm not gonna lie, there are moments where you feel like you're lost and you're like, wait, what's going on? So I also listened to this book on audio. So sometimes there'll be moments where you might have to go back a little bit and you're like, okay, I caught it. Because just listening to the audio, you definitely can get lost. And so I did go back and I'm like, okay, so now I know what's happening. So mind you, when people say that it doesn't make sense, it does make sense, but you can get lost if you're not paying attention, because there's a lot of detail within this particular book and in this particular world. There's a lot of info that we need in order to put everything together, like to connect all the dots. And so with that, there's a lot of things that we get to know about when it comes to Kadan, about her truly like hating herself, like, and she feels like there's nobody there for her. She's alone. She has to make these huge decisions. And sometimes she feels like she's against the wall. And she pretty much, at this point, it's like she has moments where she favors death over living, and to try to get over whatever she's trying to deal with, So she always looks at death like as a welcoming thing. Whereas Yos, or who she calls, the vampire that also lives in her family's home, there's a lot of secrets about him too, that also is being unpacked, and it's a slow type of unpack. But I feel like the author did this intentionally, because that's how life is. Life is where you truly aren't going to notice certain things about yourself until somebody shares it with you from their perspective, right? And it gets you to thinking like, okay, I do act like this way, I do think like this. And so I feel like with the two main characters in this book, we get to know them even more. I will say, I feel like a lot takes place when you're more like 45% in. And I know that can be a deal breaker for some readers, because they want to get involved as soon as possible. They want to be immersed as soon as possible. But I feel like maybe the author, like I said, did this intentionally. I don't know. But I was truly invested in this story and getting to know more about Kadan and about her life, and how it was rough losing your family and losing everyone, and then you lose your sister and you're just like, what's going on? Like why? So like I said, she's like an adult. That's why I just don't find this as like I said, a YA. I just don't see it. This is definitely an adult book where a lot of people are making adult decisions. You know what I mean? And also with this romance, this is a true enemies to lovers book, because Kadan and Synos truly hate each other's guts. Like, she had did things to him to torture him, in a sense, like to get, and it was true hate. And she even says it, and they both say to each other, like, I hate you. But then they have a moment of where it's like a hate love relationship, but they both truly hate each other. But there's also a lot of great things about this book that I love about, like, that I truly really enjoyed, that I don't know, but that I feel like a lot of people were left out of because they didn't get to finish it. And so, like, when we get to know more about Synos, the vampire, and his background, we learn more about him as, who he was prior to him being immortal. And then he also writes these letters, which it might be a little spoilery. He writes these letters to where the letters could be centuries, years old or whatever, but he replies to these letters, and it's letters by Black women because he feels like no one is ever available to hear them or speak to them or make them feel like they're safe. And he writes these letters and to these black women in general because they write letters to him because they call him the Immortal. And he writes them specifically to Black women is because Black women are the least protected, right? So he always looks out for them. And I acknowledge that. I even wrote it down on a receipt because I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So literally in chapter 49, he talks about the letters addressed to him, and he replies back to them, saying that he mainly writes to Black women who are mostly today remain the least protected, like I said. So I found that very refreshing, very, very honest, because that is a true fact, you know, a true statement for what he has to say. And so that gave me a breath of fresh air because I don't see a lot of books acknowledging that issue of how women of color, especially Black women, are least protected, and it's still a huge issue today. So it's a lot of things that I really enjoyed, a lot of aspects that I enjoyed. I like the fact that Kadan was like opening up to him even though she couldn't stand his guts. I also like Sueños. I cannot pronounce his name, but he's a vampire. And he talks about his, like, how he wants to live and he doesn't want to die, which why he chose to be immortal. But there were things that Kadan also found out about him that felt like red flags. But at the end of the day, they both were keeping things from each other due to the fact of their lack of trust and their past experiences. And so I'm going to read the synopsis just in case, like, if this may be on your radar, but I just want you to get a sense of what this book is about if you don't know what it is, as far as what the synopsis says. So it says, a lost heiress, a soulless vampire, a secret drenched in blood. It began long before my time, but something has always haunted our family. Orphaned heiress Kadan Adan grew up far from the arcane society she was born into, where human bloodlines gain power through vampire companionship. When her sister June disappears, Kadan is convinced a vampire stole her, the very vampire bound to their family, the cruel yet captivating Sueños Sagad. To find June, Kadan must infiltrate the elite Uxley University, where she must survive living with Sueños, even as he does everything he can to drive her away. It doesn't matter that Sueños' wickedness speaks to Kadan's own violent nature and tempts her to surrender to a life of darkness. She must find her sister and kill Sueños at all costs. When a murder mirroring June's appearance shakes Uxley, Kadan sinks further into the ruthless underworld of vampires, risking her very soul. There she discovers a centuries-old threat, and June could be at the center of it. To save her sister, Kadan must bring Uxley to its knees and either break free from the horrors of her own actions or embrace the dark entanglements of love and the blood it requires. And then it goes on to talk about Tigest Girma. Debut author Tigest Girma brings to life a world of vampires that is dangerously romantic, ruthlessly cutthroat, and effortlessly compelling. Which, like I said, it is cutthroat. Kadan and Sueños are completely cutthroat, which I really love this book even more about that because they are true to the character. And with the synopsis, this book is true to what the synopsis even says, because sometimes within synopsis it says this and this and this, but when you read the book you do not get those type of vibes. With this synopsis that I provided you, this is accurate to the T of what you're going to be getting when you read this book. And I will say it talks about romance, but it's like a slow romance. Like they have their moments of where they're like, okay, I'm done like hating you for today. So yeah, but they still hate each other to their core, which hence enemies to lovers is very, very true in this book. And I just feel like I became close to Kadan and close to Sueños, the vampire, because they have a lot of stuff that they've gone through that they end up talking about to each other. It's some real life type of shit, you know, and how they open up about their feelings, about their lives, and just the everyday thing of what they have to go through, especially with Kadan, like not having anyone, and so the only person she has is her sister, right? But then again, there are some truths that are uncovered later on in this book, which I'm really excited for because it leaves off on a cliffhanger, which I feel like the second book is going to be even deeper into getting to know Kadan even more. and regarding like her sister and Kadan and her sister June's relationship, which I find like, I feel like that's going to be a whole entire book that I'm really excited to get into, because it talks about a lot of things within this book, not just vampires, even though I'm really loving the vibes and African vampires and stuff like that from Africa. Like, especially Sueños, he is very mysterious. And when he breaks down to Kadan of his past and how he became immortal in the first place and who he was like centuries ago, like, oh, man, so freaking good. So like, I gave it a 4 to 5 stars. I didn't give it a 5-star because, like I said, there were some moments where I felt like there could have been some type of a change in pace, but I still gave it a 4-star because it's still brilliant, and I really love this story. I love the mystery, the suspense as well, because we are trying to figure out what happened to Kadan's sister June. Like, who took her? Is she still alive? What is the main goal? What is the main purpose? Like, why? And so you have all these different houses as well. So there's a whole bunch of things happening in this world that maybe people felt like it was a little overwhelming, but I loved it. But maybe I loved it because I loved it so much is because I read a lot of high fantasy. And usually with a lot of high fantasy, there's tons of info dumping, a lot of information, especially in the first book in a series. There's so much world building that you have to go through. And I truly, truly appreciate that. And so once again, I feel like when it comes to the publishers, they need to make this as an adult book. It is not YA, because there's some scenes in here too that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is definitely not YA. They got to switch it over to teen, which maybe they will eventually, who knows. But even here, first, Tigest Girma is an Ethiopian writer based in Melbourne, Australia. She holds a bachelor's degree in education and splits her time between writing and teaching. Passionate about exploring East African characters and myths, she weaves Black stories with the dark and fantastical in her work. In her free time, Tigist can be found rewatching her comfort shows where the villain gets the girl. She invites you to visit her online at tigistgirma.com or on TikTok, and it says Immortal Dark is her debut novel. So also, I put that into consideration as well. This is her debut novel, y'all. Like, this is her first book, okay, out into the world. So it may not be perfect. There may be some flaws, but that is to be expected. And even with it being her debut, I found this book so refreshing, and I truly loved it. I truly enjoyed it. It's very complex. There's going to be some information. There may be some things that you miss. But I promise you, if you read this book fully, I feel like you will enjoy it a lot more. I feel like you will appreciate the story and effort of this slow movement of trying to figure out, and the slow progress of trying to figure out this mystery of where Kadan's sister is and who took her to begin with. There's a lot of mysteries, and there's a lot of different pieces in this book that you have to put together. And I feel like with this book, it was intentional. This book is this book is not going to give you things. It's like you have to keep reading in order to find out what happens. It's not going to give you like, oh, maybe they did. It's not going to be like that. She gives, with how this is written, it's a mystery, right? You got to figure it out, but you will not figure it out. Like, I tried to figure it out and it just did not happen. And so I was truly surprised when there's a lot of like, Easter eggs here and there. I'm like, oh wait, this. Oh, like, oh, he's this. I'm like, whoa, nope, I was completely wrong. So a lot of times, like in this book, it took me by surprise, which I love as well. But I like once again, I really enjoyed this book. I didn't want to be too spoilery with this review because I still want you to read this book for yourself and to form your own opinion. Now, once again, if you did DNF this book, that is completely fine. I am not coming for you. I completely get it. I have DNF books too, but I feel like for this particular book, if you have DNF'd it, give it another try. Or at least start where you had left off, because I promise you it progresses on. It takes some time for this one, and I didn't mind it whatsoever. But yeah, once again, I gave this book a 4 to 5 stars. You definitely have to pick it up. I truly love this. I truly enjoy the pace. I truly love Kadan. I truly love the vampire aspect. I truly love the suspense and the mystery, especially when it comes to the Uxley University as well. So there's dark academia in here. So I really enjoyed that as well. And it has a lot of like African aspects in here too that I just really love and find just fascinating. But yeah, I hope you pick this book up if you haven't already. And if you did pick the book up but had softly put it down, continue reading it. I promise you it gets better. But thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell to be notified when I upload more videos in the future. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you are staying healthy and staying safe. And then once again, give this a book a try and form your own opinion around it. But have a great night, everyone. Catch y'all next time. Bye.